It's always a little thrilling when you go live, just because of the fact you're like, is it going? Are we going? Are we live? Or are we going to be live? That type of thing. But here we go, Merrick. Happy Wednesday. I hope you're not dealing with all the or the rain, the raining sideways, as they'd say in Family Guy, that I'm dealing with over here. Actually, no, it looks like it's sunny out there. What on earth is happening?
Very, very sunny. Oh man, it's been nice. It's been upper 70s, low 80s for like the last week. No
Ooh.
rain in the forecast for the foreseeable future. Uh, I'm enjoying it, man. It's getting a little warm though. It's getting a little humid. It was like 85 and slightly humid when I left work today, but now I'm inside in the air conditioning, hanging out with you, talking Dolphins football. So can't beat that.
Dealing with the harsh elements here. But this is it. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us for our Down to the Details series. Dolphins Detail. Our goal is we decided to try something a little different, try a little live show, get on YouTube, different things like that. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Today is all about wide receivers, and our focus is on 4 specific questions about this unit as the Miami Dolphins prepare for the 2023 season. So today, Merrick, the 4 very tough questions we're going to answer is: where do things stand with this position group? What makes them good? What still needs to happen this offseason? And what does success look like on the field? First and foremost, man, this is a awesome. I almost was about to swear. Wow. This is a fantastic wide receiver core. And I still can't get over the fact that the Miami Dolphins have Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, this quite possibly could be the best group, the best position group on the Miami Dolphins. I think you're looking at wide receiver, possibly cornerback, maybe the edge rusher group. Those 3 groups could be vying for the number 1 position group on the team, but
Maybe quarterback.
maybe quarterback. Yeah, we'll see. Tua was kicking ass last year, but I think for my money, I would place my money on this group being the best group on the team. You said it right off the jump. Tyreek Hill leading the way, one of the best receivers in the NFL, if not the best receiver in the NFL. We're a little biased here. It is called Dolphins Detail. Just fast as all get. Former All Pro, probably should have been All Pro, at least first team All Pro this last season. And then you got Jaylen Waddle right behind him, and that is a fantastic duo. That's a 1A, 1B duo. That's not a 1 and a 2. That's not an A and a B. That's a 1A, 1B. Those guys are fantastic players, and they lead the group. But then you got additions from Robbie Chosen Anderson, Robbie Anderson. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I think he's officially going by Robbie Chosen so that he can wear the nameplate Chosen on the back of his jersey. So I think we might just have to stick with that once and for all. You got Robbie Chosen behind him. You got Braxton Berrios in there. Cedric Wilson Jr. was a prized free agent acquisition before the Tyreek Hill trade last offseason. He's still in there somewhere. River Craycraft comes back. Eric Ezukama was a rookie who was lighting it up in preseason last year, who didn't even see the field, barely saw the field last year. He's still out there and, surprise, surprise, looking pretty good in the first couple OTAs, according to a couple beat writers. So I'm really excited for this wide receiver group. Hopefully they can replicate what they did last year. And if so, we're in business.
And just for some context too, this is a group that had 2 guys getting over 100 targets. I think there was 9 teams that had 2 guys have over 100 targets. And on top of that, I think both of their usage rating, their overall impact on the offense was right around 20% each. So these guys make up such a big part of that offense. But people forget, and I'm going to include them in this conversation just because Mike Gesicki, Trent Sherfield, they're both out the door. That's 100 targets that are instantly freed up that are going to have to go somewhere. We spoke about a little bit on the running backs. We think it might go there. But Merrick, looking at this position group, Tyreek Hill's 29 years old, but it's Robbie Chosen who is the oldest member of this group at 30 years old. There's also, I think you mentioned about Braylon Sanders is a little bit of a wild card. He had his moments last year. Freddie Swain made his way over, just like Trent Sherfield and River Craycraft. They took that voyage from San Francisco down to Miami, those Shanahan disciples. couple undrafted guys here too. But Merrick, when we speak about what makes them good, it's so hard just not to continue to rave, rant, and praise Tyreek Hill, who was second in both yards and receptions. Jaylen Waddle, who ranked first among all receivers in yards per reception at 17.9. And this is a guy who's coming out in training camp saying that he's going to start running dudes over. How do you just kind of how comfortable are you? And I think it's a pretty easy answer, but how comfortable are you having those guys 1A, 1B, just kind of being that 40% of the offense, if not more, in 2023?
I sleep like a baby at night,
Love
knowing
it.
that Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle are wide receiver 1 and 2 on this team, and they're interchangeable. You can line them up anywhere on the field, and they're going to give you production. It's just a fantastic duo. You can't say enough about what they did for this offense last year, what they did to help elevate Tua Tagovailoa's game. There's no qualms with Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle. If you want to, start dissecting things beyond those two, you can make a case for, who's number three between Barrios and Chosen, Wilson Jr., Cedric Wilson Jr. You can make a case for those guys and we can have a debate and an argument, but you're never going to find a single person who's going to tell you that any of those guys are going to surpass Jaylen Waddle or Tyreek Hill this season, barring any sort of unfortunate injury situation.
So Miami threw to receivers on 68% of dropbacks last year. Do you see that number? I mean, we've heard rumor. We didn't hear rumors. We heard from Raheem Mostert specifically say that, hey, Mike McDaniel, when we were doing our outro or our closing interviews, I'm still messing up whatever the exact lingo is, but he basically apologized to Mostert, McDaniel, that is saying, hey, we should have ran the ball more. Do you see them still throwing the ball roughly 70% of the time in 2023?
I I don't know. I do think they're going to run the ball a little bit more, based on those comments, based on the fact that they added some solid blocking tight ends and got rid of Mike Gesicki, who is essentially merely just a pass catching tight end. I think they're kind of signifying their intentions to run the ball a little bit more. I think while it probably won't be a 50-50 split, maybe a 60-40 split makes a little bit more sense. Um, you know, if I was better at math, I could give you some other
Oh,
numbers
you're
there,
cooking, man. Don't
but
worry.
maybe 58-42. But I do think this will remain a pass first team. But hopefully, Mike McDaniel can stick with the run a little bit more, especially if it's working. Especially with the addition of Devon Achane, and I do also think Devon Achane is going to find himself catching plenty of balls for the Dolphins this upcoming season as well.
And then just a couple other, if you want to start, following the trails and see where it will take you. Obviously, River Craycraft was in this scheme in San Fran. He was with Miami last year. Cedric Wilson is entering his second year in this system despite limited playing time last year. What needs to happen this offseason, Merrick? I think it's pretty simple. It's really discovering who that wide receiver 3 will be. I think Sherfield did a decent job, but I think it was clear that the Miami Dolphins wanted a little bit more from that position in terms of Sherfield was a great blocker, but maybe Yak could be one scenario because I know the Dolphins finished about 14th in terms of Yak. Has anyone locked up that wide receiver 3 position based on skill set alone? Because there is that cliche idea of what a skill or a slot receiver is supposed to be, Wes Welker. But do you feel that that position's already been filled based on a skill set?
No, and I think you can go a lot of different directions with it. If you want Robbie Chosen to be your wide receiver 3, then he's a guy with a lot of speed. He can run deep while you work Tyreek Hill or Jaylen Waddle in the intermediate, which is where Tua ate last year. He was the number one quarterback in intermediate throws in 2022. So if they want to continue to do more of that, but get the ball in the hands of Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle, 10 yards down the field so that they can turn up field, get some more yak for an offense that was one of the, surprisingly, one of the worst teams in regards to yak last season. You can have Robbie Chosen Anderson running that deep route and opening up the middle of the field for those two. If you want more of a Wes Welker type, well, that is Braxton Berrios to a T. He's going to be able to make those cuts at the top of his routes, get open quickly. Tua loves throwing to the open receivers, so he'll love himself some Braxton Berrios pretty early on. I think I saw a report from Omar Kelly today, who was talking about how Braxton Berrios has looked really good the first couple days of OTAs, and
Is
he
that a
has
kiss of
been.
death? Leggett Dene?
I don't know, but I love Omar. He's a buddy of mine. But I think it's great to be able to do both. Why not both? Don't pigeonhole the offense and let people know what's coming. Let's get Braxton Berrios when we need that 5 yard reception that can maybe be stretched into a 7 yard reception for a first down, and let's get Robbie Chosen out there when we need somebody to hit that 70 yard deep bomb and Tua can launch it out there for him because he does have the arm strength for that. We found that out last year. So I like it. I like both those guys in that position, and then they can be spelled by Cedric Wilson Jr. and Braylon Sanders and Craig Kraft and Ezukama and all those guys when they're getting a little tired in that South Florida sun.
A little bit of context here, and I love your point of, just simply why not both, right? Why not just line up everyone everywhere? Last year, Tyreek Hill was in the slot for 327 snaps, out wide for 508. He was actually had 508 snaps in the slot in 2021, and in 2020, he actually played more in the slot with 602 snaps than he did outside. So right there, hey, breaking news: Tyreek Hill's a good football player. Jaylen Waddle, 171 snaps in the slot last year. Those two, they're going to be on the field. I think they're going to have success in a lot of different scenarios. I mean, there were situations, I think both of them had roughly 10 snaps in the backfield as well. So McDaniel is fearless when it comes to lining up guys and trying to confuse defenses. But Cedric Wilson last year, 154 snaps out wide compared to 98 in the slot. Berrios, 181 slot snaps compared to just 103 outside. But Robbie Chosen is where I want to kind of sit and stop for a minute, because this is a scenario where he kind of fell into Miami's lap, right? He spoke about how he wanted to come live back home, South Florida native. And when he spoke with Mike McDaniel, there was rumors or wraparound discussions basically that it was, hey, your role might not be huge here, but if you want to come in and buy in, we can still have a role for you. Chosen last year, 427 snaps out wide compared to just 64 in the slot. You look at Berrios and you look at Chosen, those are two guys who you kind of start to pigeonhole a little bit. But in 2021, Chosen had 360 slot snaps. And in 2020, that's kind of the key, 520 snaps out wide. But he almost hit 300 snaps in the slot. And as a result, 95 receptions, 1,096 yards. I just threw a word salad, a stat salad at you. Merrick, were you able to pull away anything from that might have raised an eyebrow?
No, I think that just further illustrates the point that these guys can do both. Whereas Braxton Berrios does seem like more of a slot receiver, Chosen can do both. He can play slot, he can play outside. You're able to line him up all over the field. I think, maybe based on that alone, I would give him a leg up as the team's starting number 3 receiver in those 3 receiver sets. But I think you'll see plenty of Berrios and the other guys as well.
Let's start with chopping off like a top 4, like Miami's top 4 wide receivers: Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, and we'll say Berrios and Chosen just for the sake of they're the new guys. Miami made a point to select them. We're going to ignore the fact they did that with Cedric Wilson last year without playing him. But we'll put those 4 guys at the top just for this argument. Everybody else, you don't really have to dig into the undrafted guys, but everybody else, who would you say is at that bottom of the ladder and really has to start climbing in order to be one of those rotational guys, at least when you have a group of 29 years old, 27, 30, 28, 28. That the Dolphins have a real experienced wide receiver group once you start really digging into it.
Yeah, you can look at guys like Freddie Swain, and that's probably more of a practice squad body if he makes a team at all. Braylon Sanders, he made the team last year, but I don't know. He didn't perform well when he was pressed into action. He had a couple boneheaded plays, including a fumble against the Lions that got the team in a early hole in that one. I still wonder. Are they going to find a place for Cedric Wilson Jr. to go? Are they going to find a team that's willing to, I mean, at this point, a conditional 7th round pick or a late day 3 pick swap seems likely if a trade is going to happen after all. But these are guys that need to step up. I'm looking at Eric Ezukama as somebody who I hope steps up because his preseason last year was eye-opening. It was eye-catching. He's a big body, physical receiver. A lot of the other guys, in this receiver unit, they're a little bit smaller guys. Tyreek Hill, not that big. Jaylen Waddle, not that big. Braxton Berrios, not that big. Robbie Chosen, he's taller than the other guys, but he's also a very slender body. Eric Azukama, he's kind of rocked up, and I'd like to see him get a role on this team as maybe that big body dude that can go up and get those passes in the red zone, in the end zone, and score some touchdowns that way. Maybe one of those high point guys that can go up and get those 50-50 balls. Uh, I, I liked what I saw in preseason. I think a lot of other people did too. He just needed to catch up to the mental aspect of the game, playing in a very not pro friendly offense in college.
He's one of my spotlight is definitely on Azukama going into this season. I just would love to see success out of Miami's draft picks last year. I think that's kind of a concern we might have all of a sudden. I mean, you got Andrew Van Ginkel going inside, competing with Channing Tindall for a backup linebacker spot. And here you're still signing wide receivers. You bring back River Craycraft. We mentioned the other guys, and you wonder, where does Eric Ezukom really fit into this entire puzzle? And you wonder if there's a spot. He's someone too. I love to bring up Mike Gesicki because we like to say that was a failure, him being in the offense, but it did produce touchdowns. It did produce opportunities, and you hit the nail on the head with it. It's about high pointing the football in the back of the end zone, being that volleyball player that made Mike Gesicki so powerful in those situations. For me, that's, like you said, is where Azukoma can become a guy. I mean, Armando Salguero, when he was covering the Dolphins for the Miami Herald, one of his go-to lines out of his back pocket was tight end all alone in the end zone. The Dolphins don't have that guy right now, and I don't really look at that tight end group as someone who can be a maniac in the back of the end zone. Azukama can kind of feel like that guy. Want to bring it back to Cedric Wilson real quick. Does it kind of feel like he's in the spot Devontae Parker was in last year, where you're kind of like, yeah, this is great. You have the depth. You have a lot of guys coming in and out, but there's just not going to be enough room where it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, I can't really find a way for Cedric Wilson to see the field in anything more than just a very limited role. And that's a shame. He's a good young player, had some success in Dallas. I just, it's a numbers game, man, and I just don't see him fitting in to this group the way that he probably would like to, the way that maybe they envisioned him to before they made the trade for Tyreek Hill. And unfortunately, the Dolphins are, I say unfortunately, he's still getting paid $7 million to not really do his job. I think that's kind of a dream scenario for the rest of us working class Americans here. But I still think that there's a possibility that he will be set free this offseason, via a trade. But again, at this point, you're looking at very minimal compensation if that does happen.
So last year, nobody envisioned the Cedric Wilson discourse going the way it did, where he just really wasn't a part of the offense. If we can't envision what's happening this year, if we wanted to go out on a whim and say week 7, Cedric Wilson is that stud out of the slot, a difference maker, a match make difference, who would be that odd man out? For some reason, I keep going back to maybe Braxton Berrios is that guy, the new Ced Wilson this year, the guy you bring in and you see the vision and it makes a lot of sense. But then, maybe Ced Wilson finally steps up or another scenario occurs. So I'm just curious, is there someone here who, we kind of have as a lock that might just kind of get derailed just because we're not in that locker room every day?
That's a really good question. I wouldn't bet against Barrios just for the fact that he just seem like the perfect safety blanket for Tua Tagovailoa, just somebody that Tua is going to gravitate towards and say, "Oh, this guy's open like every play. I'll look deep. If Tyreek's not open, if Waddle's not open, then I'll go find Barrios and check it down to him." He really does feel like the perfect type of receiver for Tua Tagovailoa. Maybe not Tua last year, that intermediate deep throw guy, but if the team is telling him, "Hey, if it's not there, get the ball out so you can avoid those big hits and avoid those concussions," then you're going to want somebody like Braxton Berrios out there, getting open on those short routes, and you're going to be able to dump it off to him. And he's always been a good yak guy, and he can turn up the field and get a few more yards as well. So I don't know if there's an immediate name on this list that I look at and go, I think he might be the odd man out other than Cedric Wilson, but I don't know if he was ever the odd man in.
So if we list Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, Barrios, Chosen, Craycraft, Wilson, Sanders, and Ezukama, that's 8 guys right there.
Yep.
God, that is going to be such a fun preseason battle to watch these guys duke it out, especially the Craig Crafts and the Wilsons, it really having an impact on that second team here. Merrick, when you look at everything that's happened this offseason, they've really just kind of filled in the margins with guys like Chosen. Does anything else have to happen outside of just really discovering who that slot receiver will be? And is that even a necessity? Can it be a situation where there's 5 guys getting 3 touches a game and be cool with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's fine. I think if you got you know that many serviceable players, that many quality NFL receivers, why not use them all? Let's keep them all fresh. Use that to your advantage. Don't be beholden to naming a number 3 and then keeping him there all game long. Obviously, Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle are going to play a lot, but even they rotated in and out quite a bit last season. I mean, why wouldn't you when you're tasked at running 30, 40 yards downfield on half of your routes? But I'm really stoked with this group, and I don't think there's much else you need to do, like you said, besides figuring out the rotation between all of those guys behind Hill and Waddle.
Do you think maybe we're even overrating the idea of a slot receiver? I think maybe the biggest one of the bigger knocks on Tua's game is he didn't really check it down much. He did the F it Tyreek Hill's down there somewhere, and he was very successful with it. He had a great year, led the league in yards per attempt. But do you feel that maybe one of these guys can have a huge opportunity, but it just not come to fruition just based on Mike McDaniel's offense and how the Dolphins operate?
Well, I think the fact that we can even say something like, "Oh man, Tua never takes the check down." My, how the turntables because
Tannehill's
bec
20-yard box, baby. I remember that crap.
and Tua's first 2 years in the league, that was his big knock. Everybody said, "Oh, well, anybody can throw the ball 2 yards to their left." And now Tua's out here chucking these intermediate to deep throws all game long, literally the most accurate passer in the league on deep passes last year. And everyone wants to say, "Oh, he doesn't take the check down enough." It's like, "Oh my god, are you guys ever satisfied here?" But yeah, I think you will see a few more checkdowns this year in the name of staying healthy, but also in the name of getting the ball out quickly to players who can do something once they catch it. Braxton Berrios, we've talked about Devon A. Chain. We've talked about, I think he's just going to be such a good weapon for this offense. And even Raheem Mostert talked about how McDaniel wants to get the ball in the hands of the running back a little bit more. And a great way to do that is those dump off passes. So I think you'll see a little more checkdowns this year from Tua. So maybe that completion percentage goes up while the yards per completion goes down slightly. But I think it's going to be a successful year for our quarterback, and I think a lot of that can be attributed to number 10 and number 17 right here.
So when we start discussing what does success look like on the field, I mean, we can easily, yards and touchdowns, that type of stuff. But I think the next evolution of this Dolphins offense, it really centers around Yak. I think that's kind of the big thing for me. Mayor, can you believe that the Patriots had more Yak yards than the Miami Dolphins last year?
That's weird.
That's so weird. That
Mac
like
does like those checkdowns too, though. Mac Jones, McCorkle, he likes to check it down a little bit.
Kansas City was first in Yak yards with 2,797. The Chargers were second. Uh, Miami ranked 14th with 1,832. I think a big reason, you might struggle with Yak is, hey, once you reach that second level, you're getting tackled. I don't think that's hard hitting analysis here. Trent Sherfield was their blocking wide receiver, the guy who would be downfield trying to move those safeties out of the way. Who in this group can be that Trent Sherfield? Because I don't think I look at any of these guys and think blocking is their specialty, just like it was for Trent Sherfield.
I think Eric Saubert and Tyler Croft are your new Trent Sherfield. I think those big body tight ends they brought in, especially for their blocking prowess. I think they took this offense and they asked their tight ends to block and their receivers to catch. And what a novel concept! You got rid of Trent Sherfield. You got rid of Mike Gesicki. You got rid of a receiver who blocks and a tight end who catches, and you brought in tight ends who block and receivers who catches. It feels like they might have corrected some things right there.
Definitely a little bit of an identity crisis. Looking back, was there anything that kind of surprised you about the offense last year? Because I think we kind of expected a big, yak performance from this team, like a Kyle Shanahan offense, but it was kind of refreshing to see it be, a Mike McDaniel offense. It wasn't like you couldn't mask it over San Fran and everything looked the same.
I think it was awesome that Mike McDaniel was able to scheme up these plays and get these receivers open so far down the field and allow Tua to do what he does best, and that's use his accuracy as a superpower and get the ball to these guys. I thought it was so much fun to watch all of the Tua haters out there eat crow because all of their, you know, negative viewpoints on Tua were proven false outside of the injury narrative, with a couple of those fluke concussions there. But oh, Tua can't throw the deep ball. Well, yeah, yes, he can. And Tua only relies on Yak. Well, no, actually, he doesn't. They were middle of the road there, and plenty of teams surpassed them. Like you said, Kansas City was number one. They almost had 3,000 yards of Yak.
Crazy.
Nobody's going to tell you that Patrick Mahomes isn't a great quarterback. He is, but you don't hear anybody knocking Patrick Mahomes for the amount of yak that he gets in his offense. And then you said, you have here on the rundown, the Chargers were second. Nobody knocks Justin Herbert for these things. You know what I mean? But it's fun to take shots at Tua, from these Twitter warriors and these national media members. But last year, Tua was able to prove the doubters wrong, and Mike McDaniel was able to unlock that aspect of his game and use his wide receivers Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle to the best of their ability. And honestly, I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that Tyreek doesn't want to get hit. If Tyreek's
Mhm.
about to get tackled, he just goes down. He's like old Peyton Manning,
Smart.
back in the pocket there. Anytime Peyton Manning or Tom Brady were about to get hit, they said, "Nah, we'll eat this one and live to play another down." And Tyreek Hill does the same, which, like you said, is really smart for a wide receiver who's like what I think he's listed at 5'10", but yeah, come on. Yeah, I'm 6'5" if he's 5'10". So, uh, we'll see if we get a little bit more of that this year, maybe in the form of screens and check downs and dump off passes and things like that. But I'm not going to sit here and ask Tyreek Hill to take any big hits as he's running down the field past these linebackers and safeties.
Oh, not a chance. And just an interesting note, a little off topic here. There was a Von Miller was on a podcast recently, and he was talking about how quarterbacks back in the day, instantly is 2007 now. I hope you feel old. But the Philip Rivers of the world, the Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, when they were getting chased around in the pocket, they got to the point where they just kind of fall over and say, "Hey, the play's over. I'm not going to extend it." It was kind of refreshing. Von Miller said that Tua is one of the hardest quarterbacks to take down just because of his scrambling ability. So for all the negatives we hear, I do grasp on to those few positives we hear from, not only analysts, but players from other teams, because I think we are kind of ignoring that I think Tua isn't a mobile quarterback, but I think his ability to scramble in the pocket and keep himself clean is a little overshadowed by the fact of, you mentioned it, the couple of concussions where it's a flip of the coin and you fall the wrong way, and the rest is history.
Do you think that's Von Miller using some reverse psychology? He's like, "Oh,
Am
he's
I getting
so
got?
good at evading those sacks, man. He's so good at extending those plays." He's like trying to gas Tua up so that Tua, attempts it more so that he can tackle him and injure him. Is that just the conspiracy theorist in me right now?
We're gonna go Fulton for. I mean, 2 years in a row, he got knocked out of games against the Bills.
Dun, dun,
Conspiracy theory.
dun.
Can I go as we wrap up here on Dolphins detail, or down to the details here about wide receivers? Can I end with one tinfoil hat thing? And it's going to be
Absolutely.
kind of out there. Mike McDaniel came out and he was kind of reflecting on last season. I think this was on Tuesday. He was talking about how during the season you're really just focused on winning the next game. You're not really focused on the self-evaluation, things like that. And he spoke about the pre-snap penalties as something the Dolphins can clean up. I think they were second in the league in pre-snap penalties. I think they were like fourth in the league in total penalties. It wasn't good. But there's a reason why they were getting pre-snap penalties. And I don't necessarily think it's always as simple as the play wasn't in on time. These offenses rely so much on motion, getting in a situation where the defense can't digest what's happening. If McDaniel's focusing on getting the plays snapped earlier, do you see that maybe hurting the offense's ability to be creative when they're kind of giving the defenses a little more time to digest what's going to happen?
It could be that, or it could be just, all these players, it was the first year. Most of these players, it was the first year in the
Right.
system, you know what I mean? So maybe it just took a little more time to pick it up, and maybe some of the verbiage was a little long, and maybe he can condense things and still get the same result. But I think they have a little bit more time to work together on things like that, since they won't have to be, diving into the details of
Nice.
route combinations and all this, that, and the other while learning a new system, they can focus a little bit more on the minutia element of the offense, which could involve those pre-snap motions and things. I hope we don't see less of that. I think that's a great tool at this offense's disposal to help disguise things and scheme these receivers open a little bit more. So I hope that stays a significant element of the offense, just a little bit quicker.
And I think the issue was there were a lot of times, whether I mean even Skylar Thompson had to do this, where you're directing guys like you're on the wrong side or whatever it may be, just trying to figure things out. And I'd love to see. I think a big strength of this offense could be like in basketball when you look up and the shot clock's at 3 seconds, and instead of panicking and hucking the ball to the other team, you know what to do because you're used to that situation. Where I think hopefully with Tua, you see that 5 seconds left on the play clock and you're comfortable. You know that it's going to be snapped at that time. I think that could be a big difference maker of just this offense always knowing where they are, and having that self-consciousness can go so far when you're facing a defense in different situations.
And speaking of basketball, I know you're a Heat fan based on your tweets. And I know they lost last night, but these Eastern Conference Finals, they got to be getting you all jazzed up, huh? One win away from the NBA Finals
I
as an
have
eight seed.
It's bananas. It is absolutely bananas. And it's kind of weird because living in Massachusetts, obviously everyone's a Boston fan, and I got people saying like congratulations on going to the finals. I'm still just a little bit queasy. I have
Mm.
not so danced on the grave just yet, and it's been such a unique ride because everybody likes to be right. Everybody, especially in this scenario that the Celtics won a game. Now everybody's like, this is the blueprint. If there was ever a time for a team to come back from 3-0, it's a 2 seed against an 8 seed. It's just kind of wild how we still go back to our instincts of, hey, we're gonna base our thoughts and facts on what's happened instead of the fact that we love sports because it's unpredictable. I know that's not really the rant you were looking for, but it's just been kind of weird to me that everyone's talking about how the Celtics are instantly going to come back. They have the vision, they're the 2 seed, their defense stepped up. When in reality, that I don't think that's really how sports work.
So I bring this up selfishly just so I could mention the fact that I'm a Jersey guy, right? I actually have an old school throwback, which was purchased in 1998, Alonzo Mourning, number 33, Miami Heat jersey in my collection right now. Break it out occasionally. The Alonzo Mourning jersey. I grew up a Bulls fan, as most of us did in the 1990s. So big Bulls fan. I don't care so much for them now. I don't really actually pay that close of attention to basketball, but I've been watching the basketball playoffs uh, more so this year than any time in the last, I would say, decade. And I have absolutely been rooting for the Heat based on the fact that all you guys are Heat fans and I want you guys to be happy, but also because I want to throw on that Alonzo Mourning jersey when they make
Oh,
it
it
to the
goes hard.
finals and let people know, oh, yeah, I've been a fan for the last 25 years, bro.
Still have this tag from 1998 at freaking Marshalls. I didn't even know if.
That
Uh,
literally might be where it was purchased.
I gotta say, I'm impressed at being the 8:30 start times that you've been staying up for it. But man,
Oh, it's rough.
as someone who is so surrounded by professional sports as you are, so many professional athletes, can you imagine? I tweeted this out earlier. Can you imagine what society would be like, let alone just professional athletes, up and coming athletes, if they had someone in their corner like Jimmy Butler who can just look you straight in the eye with a level of confidence where there's a line where cockiness gets into play. I don't see that at all with him. I just see a level of confidence where he has faith in himself, faith in the people around him, and he doesn't take any time to even question that or think about it. He just knows he's got his guys. How powerful is that? Because to me, man, I'm just so jealous that I would love to have that in my corner. And it's just such a great confidence boost. And that's a lot of times in life, that's how you get to where you want to go. It's not necessarily talent. It's just believing in yourself, knowing you can get it. It's holy crap corny that sounds.
Well, I mean, tying it back to the Miami Dolphins, what's the first thing that Mike McDaniel did when he took the Dolphins job? He looked to instill confidence in his quarterback, Tua
Great
Tagovailoa,
point.
a man who had a fantastic college career, but got to the NFL and was playing under a head coach who hated his guts and, was undermining him left and right and just killing that confidence that he once had when he was a national championship winner in college. So Mike McDaniel builds Tua's confidence back up through an entire offseason. And, he even mentioned that it took Tua a number of weeks, even a couple months, to really trust that Mike McDaniel was on his side. That's how broken Tua was as a human being after playing under Brian Flores for 2 years. So, he instills that confidence in Tua, and lo and behold, Tua goes out there and has the best season of his career so far, and now has an entire offseason of Mike McDaniel and the rest of the team doing the same. And hopefully year 4 is even better than year 3 for Tua Tagovailoa because of that confidence.
Too long didn't read. Miami has awesome wide receivers, and Jimmy Butler and Mike McDaniel are basically the same person. That's welcome to Dolphins Detail. You got it all figured out. But Merrick, I think we did everything we could about this receiving group. They are an awesome bunch. It's going to be exciting to see how that slot receiver role plays out. Can I get one, as we wrap up here, just one wild prediction from this group for 2023?
I think Tyreek gets his 2,000. No, I don't actually. I don't know. I'm just trying to give you the craziest one I could think. 2,000 yards receiving. I'll tell you one. I think Jaylen Waddle will have more receiving yards than Tyreek Hill will have in 2023. I think this is a big breakout year for Jaylen Waddle.
I like that. That's exactly what I'm looking for. I could even see a scenario where even Tyreek still leads them in touchdowns or something, where Waddle's that guy who just kind of carries them down the field. What a great note to end on. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching this on Twitter, we highly suggest you go over to YouTube, subscribe to the Dolphins Detail page. That way you'll know whenever we go live, and it helps others find the show and build this Dolphins community where we don't talk about crazy stuff like Tua living in a 20-yard box. But that is all the time we have. Thank you so much for listening to Dolphins Detail and watching it. Until next time, fins up.
Fins up.